Hello and welcome to History by Hollywood, a podcast series examining the real events and people behind fact-based movies. This is episode 36 for Sunday the 12th of August 2018. This episode examines the 1993 movie What's Love Got to Do With It, about the tempestuous relationship and rise to stardom of Ike and Tina Turner, played by Laurence Fishburne and Angela Bassett respectively. It's a gritty, no-holds-barred view into Tina's early life as a singer, but ultimately one of courage and perseverance. Based on Tina's autobiography, I, Tina, we examine whether the movie really tells what happened or if it's more fiction than fact. My name is Martin Darlington, and with me as ever is Andrew Blischek.
Hello. Let's start with some errata and updates, as we usually do. Towards the end of the last episode of Victoria and Abdul, Martin described one of the aristocratic descendants who was still being snobby about Abdul Karim as the 11th Earl of Elgar. He meant, of course, Earl of Elgin, who it should be noted... Elgin is it pronounced, okay.
Yeah.
Who it should be noted is not only an unrepentant snob, but also descended from a man who stole the Elgin marbles from Greece, and which the British Museum still refuses to return to their rightful home. A bit like that diamond we saw in Victoria and Abdul, the Kohinoor.
Kohinoor, yeah. I mean, we can't be responsible for the sins of our fathers, but we can try and make reparation for their profits, is how I'd look at it. Anyway, we also have more changes to the planned episodes. After our announcement regarding changes to the upcoming movies, both Andrew and I hummed and hawed a bit about the selection. Our plan had been, after this current episode, we'd cover Schindler's List, which we still intend to do, and then we do Lawrence of Arabia, and then Darkest Hour. Then we realised all of them are wartime epics about men, Lawrence of Arabia in particular being notable as the only ever winner of the Oscar, the Best Picture Oscar, without a single line of dialogue spoken by a female character. So we've decided that Lawrence is going to have to wait a little bit longer for his arrival, and in his place we're going to do The Post, a very recent movie starring Meryl Streep as Catherine Graham, proprietor of the Washington Post, and her fight to publish revealing documents about the conduct of the Vietnam War in the very early 70s, I think this was, wasn't it?
Would have been, yeah.
It also stars our old friend Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg, so we hope it will prove a worthy and challenging subject. And looking further ahead, and don't worry for Scott Jeffrey and other listeners who have suggested Lawrence of Arabia, he will make it into the HBH Pantheon, just not yet. Into October, and the episode after Argo will be Erin Brockovich, starring Julia Roberts, and that episode will go out on Sunday the 21st of October.
And in only slight change of topic, the reason why we feel we need to have more prominent female leads is we got a suggestion from one of our early listeners, Susan Jones, a history teacher from Australia. She wrote to us right at the start of this venture for us, asking that we try to diversify the topics, particularly looking for women leads. Susan's appeal was well received, and as you know from the rejig of our list, we've tried to keep the gender of our leading characters and the topics as diversified as we can. So thanks, Susan, for being the Metis to our Zeus, which definitely falls in the category of us displaying some hubris. Also, after we managed to confuse a listener, 1314 on Twitter, by publishing episode 8, followed within hours by episode 35, Victoria and Abdul, a quick note about publishing schedules. That incident was due to the need to republish Zulu on iTunes, as the original link had somehow become broken. However, a couple of listeners have expressed their mild amusement at our announcement of an episode going out every other Sunday, when in fact they're usually published on a Saturday. Blame the mysteries of the international time zones for that one. We did try publishing on Sundays in our early days, but Australian listeners asked if it could be done earlier, as they could then get up on a Sunday morning and have an episode waiting for them, which was handy if they're mowing the lawn or walking the dog. We expect it'll seem strange to our American listeners to be waking on a Saturday morning, and if they listen to the new episode there and then, hear that today has somehow become tomorrow. It's our own little History by Hollywood time machine, I think. Any reviews this week?
No, we've got no new reviews this week, but if anyone does find themselves with a spare few minutes sat at a laptop or a smartphone or a tablet, a star rating is very helpful, but a written review is even better, just to help raise the profile of the podcast, get us more ideas, more feedback, more interaction, which would be great. Now, I had an absolutely wonderful email from Ben Robertson, and unfortunately time says that we can't really read it all out, but Ben wrote in and told us a wonderful anecdote about his childhood experience of being taken to the cinema, or picture show as he remembers it being called at the time. And this was with his, I think, brother, certainly a sibling, and his father would take them. This was in the early 50s, or in the 1950s. Ben's dad wouldn't bother to check the start times of movies. They'd just turn up, buy a ticket, and start watching a film at whatever point it happened to be. Once the movie ended, they'd remain in their seats until the reels got changed and it got started again. They'd wait until they got to the point at which they'd arrived, get up and leave. Ben says at the time, he and his siblings just assumed that was a perfectly normal way to watch a film, which I just see is so eccentric and wonderful. That's absolutely brilliant.
That is good. More on feedback. We heard from Doug Moore, an old Motopod friend of Martin's, who had changed phones and realised that after a while he wasn't getting the downloads automatically. Doug is now back with us, and we are harking back to a suggestion from last year, our theme music, which is written by a friend of the pod, Jules Chisek, and has now been named The Waltz of Anachronism. As Doug explains, a fun, quirky theme song that's not a waltz for a show by two almost experts analysing the accuracy and inaccuracy of films based on history, which seems a perfect summation to us. Thank you very much, Doug.
Yeah, thanks indeed. And now, on with the show.
The story of the movie. What's Love Got to Do with It is a 1993 biopic based on the book I, Tina by Tina Turner and Kurt Loder, a former editor of the Rolling Stone magazine. It was directed by Brian Gibson, an accomplished, if not particularly successful director. This might be his most well-recognised work. A lot of actors have been considered for the role of Tina Turner, including Halle Berry, Pam Grier, Whitney Houston and Janet Jackson. In the end, the role went to Angela Bassett. The other lead role, that of Tina's husband and musical partner Ike Turner, went to Laurence Fishburne. Fishburne had been offered the role several times. He initially declined as he thought that the portrayal of Ike in the script as the villain was a little bit too heavy-handed. Fishburne says that the main factor for him changing his mind eventually was when he learnt that Angela Bassett had been cast to play Tina. The movie also stars Rob Lobel as legendary record producer Phil Spector.
Yeah, both Tina and Ike Turner had sold the rights to the story, so they both got payments for it. And although Tina was involved in the movie, she had no say in the final script. She did record her songs for Angela Bassett, and there's an awful lot of documentaries you can find on YouTube about the making of the movie, about Tina Turner and her life, and also with Ike being interviewed. And we'll have some bits of that later. But Angela Bassett said she found it absolutely amazing being taught the moves. So she taught how to dance like her.
Gave her some clothes to wear as well, I think.
Yeah. And Brian Gibson did say that Angela Bassett's voice was certainly got a good singing voice, but to sound like Tina would have taken too long for her to coach into that role. So she lip sync, but she does it brilliantly. But Laurence Fishburne really did sing the Ike parts.
He does it very well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Angela Bassett, as an actress, has a long, accomplished career, both before and after What's Love Got to Do with It. But this may be her best-known role. I think she was in the recent Black Panther movie, so she's got...
That's right, yeah, she's the Queen. Yeah. I've not watched them, but...
I have, yeah. She does a good job. She was nominated for a Best Actress Oscar and did win a Golden Globe for the Best Performance by an Actress in a Comedy/Musical. Laurence Fishburne was also nominated for a Best Oscar, Actor Oscar, both of which they were both unsuccessful for. But considering the acclaim that both lead actors got, given it's worth remembering that the movies that they were up against that year were Schindler's List, The Piano and Philadelphia, maybe going some way to explain why neither won in their nominated categories.
Yeah, on its release, the movie got excellent reviews. It currently holds a 96% positive score on Rotten Tomatoes. Rolling Stone and Entertainment Weekly both have it in their respective lists of top 10 music biopics. The real Ike Turner and Phil Spector both hated it, but, well, we'll come on to that. The movie cost $15 million to make and took $39 million in the domestic US box office, so a clear financial success. And this is another of those strange situations where some figures are just unfindable. In this case, the worldwide takings, I can't find them anywhere. but it's safe to assume you can significantly increase the 39 million taken in the US.
Well, one thing I've been meaning to mention in our podcast is we say that this film made a lot of money, made 39 million, costing 15 to make. It's very rare that we find anything other than the release of the movie box office.
Yeah, the cinematic release.
And there'll be re-releases, and then there was the VHS releases, and then the DVD and Blu-ray, and now streaming costs. Someone's planning to subscribe to this. We don't really see those sort of figures anywhere, do we?
No, that's very true, actually. And occasionally you'll see them, but yeah, I mean, when a DVD's first released in that surge, and obviously there are people like, I've got to have a copy of that film, they'll be paying, $20, $25 for a newly released DVD.
So this $39 million would have, gone up exponentially, potentially, for the producers of the movie.
Yeah. And I think, it's a bit, I raised my eyebrows, which obviously the listeners will have missed because I've oiled them so they don't creak so much today. But the best performance by an actress in a comedy musical was what Angela Bassett got the Golden Globe for. Obviously the movie's about musicians and therefore there is music in it, but I wouldn't describe it as a musical, I wouldn't describe it as a comedy. It may have been, in that year of very, very powerful movies, a way of, we need to recognise it, we'll give her this one. Yeah. It's got some music in it.
Yeah, they play the same game with the Emmys. They'll get some quirky, gritty thing like Nurse Jackie, and they'll nominate that as a comedy because they don't want to go up against Mad Men and The Sopranos or whatever is big at the time.
Yeah.
So maybe they played a similar game with this one.
Okay, right. Well, let's have a look at the synopsis.
What's Love Got to Do With It opens with some script on the screen. It says, "The lotus is a flower that grows in the mud. The thicker and deeper the mud, the more beautiful the lotus blooms." A Buddhist chant. The opening scene is actually a church with a gospel choir singing "This Little Light of Mine," and a young Anna Mae Bullock, played by young Raven Kelly, is harmonising and starts to dance.
Yeah, the choir mistress stops them singing and scolds the young girl, saying, "You show the Lord a little more respect." And you sort of see the little girl's expression, Anna Mae's expression. She can't really help herself. And as soon as they start singing, she starts harmonising again. And it's a bit of a comic scene as she's taken by the ear to the door and ejected. And then we see her walking home along a rural road. It's obviously it's farmland.
Tennessee.
She sees some people arguing outside a farmhouse, and a pickup truck drives off, and the caption tells us that this movie is based on I, Tina by Tina Turner and Kurt Loder.
Entering the house, outside which she's seen the people arguing, the little girl sees some broken furniture, some empty drawers, and a general sign of chaos. Her grandmother is there and packing some clothes, takes the young girl on the back of her horse, saying, "You come live with Grandma," and we realise that the girl's mother has just run out on the little one.
Right, shall we do a setting the scene reality check?
Yeah.
Now, the movie never shows Anna Mae's father, but it was from his abuse that her mother Zelma fled. But she did leave behind young Anna Mae, although she took her sister Aline with her. Now, initially she was raised by her father, wasn't she?
For a brief period of time before he also abandoned the little girl.
And then her grandmother stepped in, and she did move to St. Louis, which is really the next scene we're going to get to. Anna Mae, this is. But the timelines are a little bit different.
Just a little bit.
We'll get to that.
But not bad. Okay, back to the movie. We learn that it's now St. Louis, 1958, and we see a grown-up Anna Mae, now being played by Angela Bassett, on a bus heading into town, looking excited when she meets her sister, Aileen, played by Phyllis Yvonne Stickney, and her mother, Zelma, played by Jennifer Lewis. At the mother's house, they talk, and her mother tries to justify having left Anna Mae behind all those years ago. There's some tension, but Anna Mae seems happy to be there. We see a cue to a dance club where a young Anna Mae seems delighted to be among the partygoers. A live band are on stage, and we meet Ike Turner, played by Laurence Fishburne for the first time, the main singer. Anna Mae is entranced by his performance. The opening scene told us that she is a very musical person, and this just confirms it. Ike is inviting ladies to sing along by having the microphone handed around the audience. If they're not very good, he takes the mic off them. Anna-May's sister warns Anna-May that Ike has a reputation, and we get the impression that it's not necessarily the quality of their singing that he's most interested in.
Yeah, just so to wrap that up, it was actually 56 that Anna-May moved to St. Louis, age 16. Yeah. By 1957, should we call her Tina from now on?
Make it easy.
Because she was a backing singer in Ike's band and had a relationship with Raymond Hill, who was the Kings of Rhythm's saxophonist, and this produced a child, Craig, who would go on to be adopted by Ike and Tina when they eventually got married. Hopefully that's not a spoiler. But the scene where young girls are asked to mic and offered a chance to sing is absolutely true, and the better you were, the longer you got on the mic.
And I think they've delayed the arrival in St. Louis by a couple of years because it takes her from 16 to 18, which is a bit more respectable, but either way she was in the nightclub illegally because it's to this day it's still 21, so she would have had to dress herself up to get past some sort of security.
Yeah, and really there's no mention in the movie of Raymond Hill, or we see Craig, but because there's 4 lads later.
Yeah.
But it's never really explained.
They kind of amalgamate it that when they have their first... we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think
that's understandable. Anyway, back to the movie, and back home, Tina is hairbrush singing in the bathroom, much to the amusement being caught by her sister and mother. We go back to the club. She's had her hair done and is wearing a stunning white dress. Ike is back on stage, the mic being passed around the ladies in the crowd, none of whom are particularly impressive, as singers this is. Helped by her sister, who works behind the bar, the mic finally makes its way to Tina. Prowling to the stage, we hear her sing properly for the first time. Most of the guest singers up to this point have kept the mic for a few seconds, but Anna-May gets to finish most of the song, and she's really good. Not just the singing, but like performing and clearly loving it. She doesn't try and over-elaborate, and she gets a rousing round of applause as she struts from the stage.
In the next scene, we see Tina and Ike in a restaurant ordering food. Ike sends one of his guys away to buy something, some cigarettes. He tells Tina he needs cigarettes, but a minute later takes out a pack and lights one up in front of her.
Yeah, I read into that because he muttered to his mate and gave him some coins that he was going off to get him a packet of
cigarettes?
No. Some kind of
bundles.
prophylactic.
Well, see, what I saw into the movie was that the guy that he shooed away had been sweet on Anna-May Tina in the previous visit and wanted to buy her a drink, and he was the one that was knocked out when she came in the white dress. So I took that as just a ploy to get her out of here. That might have been
Raymond Hill, with whom she'd had a child.
Yes, could be.
Okay. So they're sat down, and he tells Tina, we call her, that she has real flair, and that's what sells records. She asks him if he has a flair, and he says, yeah, he has a talent for writing songs and making people famous. And he does say a lot of singers start in his review show, then they get a recording contract, and you can see he's trying not to sound bitter, but it's fairly inevitable. He does sound bitter when he says, yeah, most of them go off and I get dumped. Yeah.
So what about the reality that the theme shown in that restaurant scene sums up Ike's experience up until that point? He was a frustrated performer and was looking for every opportunity to get ahead. He was locally well known, but he wanted national stardom, and that had eluded him. And as he said in the movie, he did start some singers off who got recording contracts and left him behind. Tina would indeed promise never to do that to him, a promise that would keep her in a marriage and a band that caused her physical and emotional damage, as we'll soon see.
Yeah, because she says in the restaurant, I would never do that to you. And she genuinely looks sincere about it, and clearly was. Back to the movie and back home, Tina's warned by Eileen that Ike says things like this to all the girls. As they talk, however, Ike arrives at the house in a flash car, some convertible, and he's got some friends with him. Zelma answers the door, and in a kind of obviously smarmy but quite charming way, Ike asks her if her mother's in, and then expresses astonishment when Zelma tells him that she is Anna-May's mum. So Ike tells Zelma that she can really sing, and she starts saying, I haven't paid for her to come all the way up from Nutbush, Tennessee to waste her time with a bunch of musicians. And you can see in Tina's face, she's like, she's going to destroy my dreams. But Ike says to her sister, take her out the back. And then he goes to work on Zelma, doesn't he?
Yeah, saying that Tina's got what it takes to make it big, He's reading Zelma like a book. He offers her money from a fairly thick roll of notes to impress her for her, quote, expenses, and asks if Tina can come just to a few rehearsals. Taking the money without a word, Zelma tucks it into a blouse, and the next scene, we see a makeshift recording studio and Tina singing while Ike and his band are listening.
Yeah, and Ike says to her, sing rougher. You know, I think he wants that gravel in her voice, which, you know, we all associate with Tina Turner.
Yeah.
But Zelma arrives and she's protesting about the stylist singing, and Ike ushers her out. And Tina is really getting into the song, and it then sort of cuts to the band with Tina and the backing singers, the Ikettes, all in costume on stage. An after show party, they've obviously performed locally. Ike tells them, we're going on tour. But he shows his, you know, professional outlook to musicianing when he says, look, my name's going to be on that bus, so if you screw up, you're screwing up my good name. Now at this stage, Ike's girlfriend Lorraine storms out because he's kind of making eyes at Tina and he's paying her compliments. Lorraine storms out, and a couple of the other singing girls say to Tina, he says, oh, Ike's got his eye on you, and she sort of laughs it off and says, no, he's with Lorraine. And they went, oh no, Ike always looks forward, he's always got his eye on the way forward.
Okay, so what about the reality check on that?
Ike's obviously interest in Tina is more than just a singer, is probably quite true. He was promiscuous. Mm-hmm. He was married at least 8 times. In some interviews he claims up to 13. Wow. And strangely, he actually says the marriage with Tina is one that was never really official.
Right, because it was a quickie in Mexico.
Yeah. Now, we'll get to that bit, but they may not have been married, but they're definitely divorced.
And I had to smile about the corny line about, oh, is this your mother? Where's your mother home?
Yeah.
Suggesting that it must be Tina's sister, because the actress that played Zelda was actually considered for the role as well at some stage. I don't have her name at hand.
Jennifer Lewis.
Lewis.
She was auditioning for the part of Tina, but then cast as Zelma, and she's only 2 years older.
Only 2 years older. Isn't that cute?
But what is interesting as well, and we'll come back to this later on with some of Ike's lashing out that he did after Tina went off on her own and was hugely successful. Zelma was actually mixed-race American Indian. I'm pretty sure in an interview it's Navajo and Mohawk.
Wow.
But Tina now, you watch, Oprah, she's very good friends with Oprah Winfrey, and there's a number of interviews you can watch on YouTube with her, and you can read them. And she's very close with Aline still. They're very good friends. When she's asked about her mother, she's quite, not evasive, but she'll say, oh, do you know one thing that I do wish she told us more about her heritage, because, you know, that's sort of half of my ancestry that I don't really know anything about, and I've thought about doing one of these family searches, and then she said, I'm a bit scared, I'm not sure I'm strong enough to do that. So I'm not sure if Zelma is as mercenary as she's portrayed in this film.
Yeah.
Or maybe she is, and out of loyalty Tina Turner doesn't want to say that. I'm not sure. But she's very well played, and she is a kind of, I'm going to look after my girls, but I'm going to look after myself first to make sure I'm in a position to look after my girls. Thank you very much, Mr. Turner, I'll have that money. Yeah.
Good summary, Martin. Now, what about Lorraine? It was the first time we met her, isn't it?
Lorraine Taylor, and she was a wife, and they did have 2 sons,
already.
Her and Ike, yeah.
Yeah, and they're 2 of the 4 that we see later in the movie.
That's right.
Back in the movie, we see Ike playing the piano alone in the basement when Tina comes to say goodnight. He asks her to sit down and talk with him, and then he asks her to open her mouth. You ain't been to the dentist before, have you? He asks. Looking embarrassed, she admits not. He says that he'll get one of his people to take her in the morning. She's invited to stay in the spare room as it's too late to go home. She agrees after he promises to call her mother. Tina, however, is woken up by a very drunk Lorraine, pointing a revolver at her. But the drunken girl leaves, goes in another room, closes the door, and we hear a gunshot. Ike promptly arrives, but Lorraine has clearly shot herself. We see a howling Lorraine, still alive, being loaded into an ambulance. Ike jumps in his car to follow as a shocked Tina goes back in the house. She's sleeping on the sofa when Ike returns. He says Lorraine's going to be fine. He says he's fine, but clearly upset. Tina strokes his head, and before long they kiss. She pulls away, guilt-ridden, but Ike says that Lorraine did the worst thing she could have with him. She stopped believing in him. He says that all those people he'd helped make in the music industry who went on and left him, hurt him bad. Tina says she'd never do that to him, and before long, they're back in each other's arms, and then she's in his bed for a post-watershed moment.
Yeah, the truth of that is that he was with a girl called Lorraine Taylor. He cheerfully dumped her when he felt that Tina was going
to help his career more,
better prospect, or possibly he fell in love with Tina and thought, yep. So he moved on quite happily. I've not found any account saying that Lorraine Taylor tried to shoot herself. She was certainly alive many years later. And when you don't see her shoot herself in the ambulance when she's been taken on a stretcher. All the blood seems to be around her midriff, and I'm thinking, if you're going to try and commit suicide with a gun, you tend to do it in your head. Yeah. You don't shoot yourself in the stomach, which is,
Well, we don't even know if she was shot at all.
So I think
fiction upon fiction.
I think that is probably a fiction used to illustrate how Ike would quite callously sort of dump one and move someone
while they're in the hospital.
Yeah.
So back in the movie, we see the tour bus arrive with Ike Turner and the Kings of Rhythm emblazoned on its side. Ike and Tina are now clearly an item. The girls all go together to a salon to have hair and makeovers done. Tina is having her hair dyed and is worried it's looking kinda orange. She panics when chunks of her hair promptly fall out. On stage that evening, Ike is calling for her, and when Tina runs on stage just in time to open the singing, he can see that she's got long hair, black again, and in their changing room afterwards, the girls are jubilant when Ike comes in and asks whose idea was it to all wear long, dark, black wigs. They're all a bit shocked, but Ike says that he loves it. He tells Tina that he has a new song he wants her to record when they get back to the studio. He then says, "You put on a few pounds there." And the next scene is like filming his newborn son. Tina is in a hospital bed with her sister and mother and the radio on when they hear Ike and Tina Turner mentioned by the DJ. She asks, "Who's that?" And Zelma laughingly says, "That sounds like wedding bells to me, babe." Ike enters and Tina says, "What sort of name is that?" So she's referring to the fact that she's just learnt from the DJ that the new act is Ike and Tina Turner. The doctor tells Ike and the family that Tina has acute anemia and can't be released for at least 3 weeks. Ike isn't happy, but the doctor is adamant. In the next scene, we see Ike wrapping up his baby and one of the guys carrying Tina outside as they clearly make an escape. When Tina protests, Ike shows her an engagement ring. He says they can go to Mexico, get married, and the next stop will then be New York City. Tina asks what's in New York, and Ike answers, "You and me, babe, Ike and Tina." As the group hustle to the cars, we hear Tina's distinctive voice, then see black and white footage of their wedding venue in Mexico, a small hotel with a sign saying 10-minute nuptials, certificate included. So right. Their relationships have really rocketed along there, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in reality it took a couple of years, but on the reality check, the incident in the hair salon is absolutely true. Yeah. The salon owner's daughter was given the job of preparing Tina's hair with bleach, and she applied the wrong proportions of hydrogen peroxide or whatever.
And the hair actually fell out? Or just
it did fall out. Her hair fell out. As a result, Tina and the Ikeettes bought wigs, and Ike did love it, and it became part of the act, and something Tina continues with to this day. Although she has, she very quickly recovered, and she got a full head of her own hair.
Yeah.
The son we see being born is Ronnie, the only child they'd actually have biologically together. He was born in 1960, and only a day or two later, Tina is back on stage. Now, one of the interviews with Ike Turner, he does sound a bit punch drunk in it, but he says, no, I never forced Tina back on stage. I wasn't even there. But if she was on stage, Ike must have been there, because they were a duo leading the band, so I think he's a bit confused. But they did get married in Tijuana, quickie marriage, and they headed back over the border to keep touring.
I was surprised that Mexico had quickie marriages. I mean, a staunchly Catholic country like that.
You probably couldn't get one if you're Mexican, but they...
tourist weddings, possibly.
I'd imagine.
Okay, where did we get to?
So, back in the movie, we next read we're in New York City, and it's August 1960, and the Apollo Theatre in New York bears the legend Otis Redding, Martha and the Vandellas, Ike and Tina Turner Review, and we kind of know they've made it to the big time.
We see the backup singers, the Ikeettes, in their dressing room when Ike comes in, but Tina says she's tired and is worried she's losing her voice. She says it's all happening too fast, but Ike pushes her and says if they don't go on stage, they don't get paid, and so they won't eat. So Ike's showing no sympathy. She says that she's tired and she doesn't know that she should be pushed so hard. And he says, "We got to work." He pushes her hard. He accuses her of trying to wriggle out of supporting his act and abandon him like all those suckers before. He's got to where he wants, and now she's going to let him down. She apologises to him, and he storms off. But when they're announced, Tina is there on stage. So there's some potential tension here. She's saying we're going too fast, I need to slow down. He insists that they proceed, and Tina's on stage, and she pauses for a while. Is she going to proceed or not, we think? And perhaps Ike senses this, and he leans back and on stage gives her an amorous kiss on the cheek. So she can then start singing, and everything seems to be good, but the camera zooms in and we see a tear rolling down her cheek.
But as she starts to sing, if this is Tina with a weakened voice, it doesn't show.
In that part of the movie, we see Tina strut, grimace and roar the song out as we see Ike relax, knowing that she's blowing the audience away. The audience applauds wildly, and we see flashes of cameras as headlines tell us Ike and Tina climb the charts. Zelma's looking at a royalty check and laughing. She asks Tina what she's planning to do with all that money. "Anna May," she says, "you're not going to forget all those folks who helped you get where you are now," with a grimacing smile. Tina answers that she'll never forget her blood. Tina looks across to see Ike chatting to some young girls, and she rolls her eyes. Zelma says he's just been a man. Tina shouldn't worry or nag at him. Zelma is clearly trying to stop Tina from shooting the goose that's just started laying some golden eggs.
Yeah, it's really powerful scene, that, isn't it? And her mother just, obviously, right, what's in it for me? Right. And Angela Bassett is absolutely brilliant. The way she does that sort of, yeah, don't worry, Mum.
Yeah, they set it up well. We know things are going to get worse, don't we? It's at this point that we see Ike's ex-wife, I imagine?
Yeah.
Ex by this stage. Lorraine turns up with two young boys that we don't know about until this point in the movie. These are her sons with Ike, we assume. Lorraine shouts out that she's heard he's playing the family man now. Leaving the two boys on Ike's drive, she gets back into her car and disappears. It's Tina who turns to the boys and comforts them as they watch their mother drive off. Ike stalks past, asking rhetorically, "What am I going to do with two more kids?" Tina asks the lads if they've ever been to California. So she's being the mother figure them to them straight away. What about the reality of that?
Yeah, the reality is that the touring was where Ike and Tina and the band found their success at this stage of their careers. Hit single continued to elude them for quite a while, although the tours were a great success, and it's their performances, their energy. And you can hear Tina Turner now saying, "I am a singer, but first and foremost I'm a performer, and the medium within which I perform is singing." But it's, to her it's a visual thing as much as it is an audio thing.
Fool in Love?
Fool in Love, though, was the big hit. Yeah, and Ike wrote that, and it was very big. And you can hear that sort of 60s sound in it, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas and that Motown sort of thing. The exact details of Ike's two sons with Lorraine Taylor being dropped off is disputed by Ike and Tina. He says, no, it's all arranged. She tells a vague but slightly different sounding story. But she's always said, "I've got 4 sons." And the boys very much became part of the family. They weren't treated any differently. And I believe all 4 of them would refer to Tina as Mum.
I imagine so. We see the Hollywood sign and a faux vintage film of the family celebrating a birthday. Ike's 2 sons with Lorraine clearly have become part of the family. It's 1964, and Ike and Tina are being interviewed on a radio station, KDSC. Asked what they think about the English music invasion coming to the States, the Beatles and the like, Tina answers that it's Negro music with different accents, but she likes a lot of it all the same. The interviewer then asks what Ike thinks about it, but he sits silently. Tina answers saying that they've been touring a lot, and Ike's been writing a lot, and so he's been a bit busy. The interviewer clearly wants Ike to say something, but Ike just smiles and walks out. Then at their house, the girls are splashing in their pool. The backup singers, Ike, sniffing something up his nose, shouts at them to be quiet because he's working. Tina comes in to be told that he's got to work to make money. Then he starts going on about all the wigs and the outfits and all the money that she's spending, sniffing all the time as he talks. He says he has to pay the girls, pay the band, and he has to have his studio built if she'd sing the songs the way he wants. We get the idea that maybe they've not continued to be as successful as before.
Yeah, Tina says to him, well, they all sound the same.
The songs that they've belted out.
Yeah, and as soon as she says it, there's that, he just stops and he said, what did you say? And then she tries to repair it by saying, you know, you've got your own style, but it's too late. And this is the first time we see him hit her. He gives her a really hard backhander and absolutely sends her flying over the back of a sofa. He then bends down and starts punching her hard, and then drags her off past the children into their bedroom as she's screaming. And these 4 young kids are just sat there covering their ears. He throws her into the bedroom, and Ike says, I guess you're going to leave me now, and stalks off, leaving Tina crying. He tells the kids, go on, your mum and I were just talking, as if they hadn't seen anything. And this is where Jackie, one of her friends, played by Vanessa Bell Calloway, comes in to see Tina bleeding, crying, and trying to make excuses for Ike. And she says, no, it's all right, he's stressed, and it's just a one-off. And Jackie says, no, it isn't. What about all the other times? And so we get to understand that this is something that's started to happen regularly. But Tina's determined to get him back on track, and as Tina sleeps later that night, Ike sneaks in and leaves a big wrapped up present on the bed beside her, clearly to say sorry.
So let's unpack all of that.
Yeah.
So they did move to California, obviously, and they did have a measure of success, and they've got that's shown in the nice house and the pool and the electronic equipment.
The interview thing's interesting. You can find quite a few interviews with Ike and Tina Turner in their heyday being interviewed together. And Laurence Fishburne plays him brilliantly. He's not being grumpy or miserable, he just doesn't speak.
I don't know if he's trying to be super cool or something, but you're right.
Tina's referred several times to his shyness, and that's maybe why stardom had eluded him, because he couldn't build that
charisma,
that
he didn't project
superstar persona that fans want. They want to know. They want someone who's does great music, great, but you've got to kind of go out and engage with them. But she certainly does do all the talking. The beatings did start quite early. The other band members have all said, they knew what was going on, although they'd rarely witnessed an attack. But one thing was you'd sort of think he'd be calculated. He's married to the lead singer of his band.
He gives her a massive backhand.
And you if he's going to beat her up, he wouldn't sort of mark her face. But Tina's adamant. No, he wanted to. He saw it as a badge of honour. Like, look, I'm in charge of my bitch. And also, as a guitarist, she says he very rarely punched her. He'd slap her, but usually he'd use utensils, shoes, boot stretchers, those wooden things that go inside boots, coat hangers, anything that came to hand. Now, I think we just need to say at this stage, because obviously this becomes a major theme of the movie, we discussed this, and we very quickly, when we started looking at this as a potential movie to cover, that it was based on Tina's autobiography, written with her and Kurt Loder. So we were aware it might be very one-sided. She has since said, and you'll hear this later, that she thinks the movie actually toned it down, but this is still Tina's point of view. So we started digging out, and then clearly Ike was violent to her, but I was actually quite shocked when I found an interview where Ike is being asked about it, and this is the real Ike Turner talking about domestic abuse towards his wife.
You admit that you have slapped Tina before, but why, Ike?
She would be walking around looking sad, with a lip drop, and I keep asking her, "And what is the matter with you? What's wrong?" And it's always, nothing. And it would go on for a day or two till finally, why the don't you? And then this is where I would slap her or something. Then she would change her mood or attitude or something. Let me tell you, I would say this. I would do no more to Tina, and I did no more to Tina than I would want somebody to do to my mother.
So Ike's justification is he saw his mother being beaten up, therefore it's fine for him to do it. It's absolutely... and you can find these clips. He says it to Roseanne. Roseanne Barr actually makes him admit it and apologise it. But he's still wheedling. He's still trying to dodge it. And he clearly doesn't... He says, well, I was very demanding and yes, I was a bit inconsiderate. No, you beat your wife up.
He's being portrayed as a bit of a narcissist, and it's all about him up until now. But gee, it did take a dark turn with that scene where she gets this first major beating, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you remember whether it had an R rating? I'm pretty sure it would have.
Yeah, because of the language as well as and the violence.
That's right, there was.
If you got a strong stomach and you can abide watching it, you can find most of the interviews with Ike Turner, the recent, well I say recent, the ones after they broke up, obviously will feature these comments, and he it's like he's either too stupid or stubborn, or he actually doesn't think there's that much wrong. At one point he says, Tina said I broke her jaw. Will you ask any doctor if I'd broken her jaw? There's no way she could have sung on stage that night. So he's not saying he didn't hit her,
right.
But he's saying, I couldn't have broken her jaw. And he says all those little scars, well, she could have got those anywhere. What? Yeah, because, we've all got scars all over our faces. No, we haven't.
Terrible business. Finally, though, on the reality check, she's got that friend Jackie. Is this the first time we met Jackie?
Yeah. Well, she's been in the background up to now, but this is where Jackie actually becomes a key character. And she is fictional, but she's an amalgamation of several friends Tina had over the years. Some were Ikettes, as Jackie is, and some were just in their circle of friends. But there definitely were friends who tried to get involved and tried to speak to Ike. And
as you've already said, the band knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So there's no denying it.
Yeah.
So back to the movie?
Back to the movie, and we see them being interviewed, and the interviewer says, has it been a challenge because your recent songs haven't been as successful as Fool in Love? So we confirm what you said earlier, you get the idea that they're still doing okay, but it's not been the launch pad they thought. And again, Tina gives all the answers. She says, well, Ike's really busy writing, and I'm just a homebody, cooking and cleaning, looking after the boys. And then they're introduced singing Shake Your Tail Feathers, and there's that...
On TV, wasn't it? It was telecast
yeah, that's
on TV.
right. It was a television show. And there's that familiar energy to Tina's performance. Although Ike looks really strange because he's got like a Beatles mop haircut.
Well, Ike's hair changes ridiculously during this movie. It's trying to reflect... right through the afro.
18 years, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is very noticeable, isn't it?
And it must have been fun for Laurence Fishburne, having all these different hairstyles in a very short space of time. But in the audience, in a live audience, we see a sunglass-wearing white guy looking on. And it turns out this is Phil Spector, played by Rob LaBelle, this is legendary music producer Phil Spector, who goes to see Tina after the show. Ike arrives, recognises him and says, wow, you come to see me. And he said, well, Tina. He says, well, anything you've got to say to her, you should say to me. And Spector says, I'd like to record a song with Tina. And Ike says, wow, Phil Spector wants to record with Ike and Tina. And Phil says, no, I want to record with Tina. But Ike still says, he's kind of like not even knocked off his stride, is he? Just says, no, sure, that's great. Let's go and talk in my office. And leads him off, so she's not even involved in the conversation.
Yeah, so he's very controlling. If there's no surprise, I guess.
Yeah.
Next scene, we see Tina in a recording studio with a full orchestra and choir, conductor and everything. Phil Spector is in the sound booth, and they're recording River Deep, Mountain High, but there's no sign of Ike. We, the movie audience, are reminded of the strength of Tina's voice, able to carry the song alone between the choir and the orchestra bits.
Were a young boy, did you have a puppy that always followed you around? Well, I'm gonna be as faithful as that puppy. No, I'll never let you down. 'Cause it goes like a river flows, and it gets bigger,
So the action switches from the studio, but still here in the song. It's now been watched on TV with Ike, Tina, the Ikettes and all the friends sat in incredibly tense silence. Tina's braced for Ike's jealousy, but surprisingly, he actually gets up and says, wow, babe, you did really well. And he sounds quite sincere. Next we hear a radio announcer introducing the song, saying it's #1 across Europe and climbing the charts in the States. They're in a diner. Ike and a buddy are sat down in a diner, and Tina and a friend arrive, and 2 kids walk up, ask for her for an autograph.
2 white kids.
Yeah, 2 white kids, and Ike's a little bit knocked, isn't he? Yeah. And then Ike announces that the Ike and Tina Turner Review are going to be touring with the Rolling Stones. He orders a large cake to celebrate. Well, he says, let's have some of that cake. In fact, let's have all of it. And he tries to get Tina to eat a piece. She says, no, it's okay, thank you. And he says, hey, this is good cake, eat it. And then ends up horribly, predictably, brilliantly done, because you know what he's going to do. He's pushing his cake closer to her face, and he just flips and shoves it in her face. So she throws her glass of iced water in his face, and as he goes for it, Jackie, who's there with her, steps in saying, no, Ike, you're not going to hit her. So he doesn't. He hits Jackie instead. And she's absolutely raging at him, and Tina's going, no, it's okay, Jackie, it's okay. She says, no, it's not okay. And Jackie leaves, and we just see this real sort of torn Tina turn and sit back down with Ike. Yeah,
and later that night we see Tina in bed with Ike, and she gets up, wakes the kids, and makes a call to her mother's. She asks if she can come and stay with her. She packs the kids onto a Greyhound coach, and the family is on the run. Zelma, the mother, is woken by her phone ringing. We hear her say, hello, Ike, before seeing Tina taking the boys to the toilet during a coach stop in the rain.
Yeah, she takes the boys to the toilet, but she's got the youngest with her.
That's right.
And she's looking for the other 2. And the other 2, she can't find them.
And she sees them with Ike, and he's packing them into a car, and so he's clearly taking them back, and she's screaming no. She tries to get them out of the car, come out, all to no avail, and in the end, Ike just insists that she joins him, come back, what are you doing, being a silly girl, get in the car.
And she's pretty much bullied into it.
She's bullied into it. She's reluctant, but he's got all the kids and he holds all the cards.
Let's do a wrap up on that. Phil Spector, disgusting creature though he is, great music producer. If anyone's wondering why I just called him a disgusting creature, he's serving 19 years to life.
Shooting a girlfriend? Wasn't it?
Murder.
Killed her,
Yeah, and there's things that
lots of
there's
other
more stuff coming.
Yeah.
Very Harvey Weinstein kind of character.
Yeah.
But his wall of sound technique was...
Yeah, I was looking forward to them portraying the wall of sound. When I realised that Phil Spector was going to be portrayed in the movie, I thought, how would they portray this? Because I've heard the expression, his wall of sound technique, but I couldn't quite visualise what it meant. I reckon they did a great job.
Yeah.
This full orchestra and this other section with the backup singers.
I think that's it. He brought, you had swing bands which would have orchestras, but this is rock or pop music, but with that kind of really powerful orchestral brass sections with a conductor. The single River Deep Mountain Eye didn't actually do very well in the US, but was a huge hit in the UK and Europe, and this is a theme we'll return to. But the tour with Ike and Tina opening for the Rolling Stones is spot on. Tina and Mick Jagger remain firm friends, which does explain why they appeared together on the stage at the original Live Aid in 1985, and of course that was the clip when they're singing the Rolling Stones song, It's Only Rock and Roll, But I Like It.
Yeah.
That was a clip we heard at the beginning.
In fact, one of the Ikeettes, on a documentary I saw, she maintains that Tina and the Ikeettes taught Mick Jagger to do that stilted dance that he was doing, because he was trying to dance like a white boy, and they take claim for his unique dancing style. I'm not sure if they'd be particularly proud of.
That's referred to in several interviews. There are some you can see with Tina and Mick Jagger together, and then there's others where she laughs and says, yeah, he says his mum taught him to dance, but no, it was me and the girls. And he laughs and says, yeah, Tina claims that, he says, if she taught me to dance, I taught her to sing. Something
what
like
a good
that.
anecdote, though.
Yeah, on not so cheerful a note, the cake incident was true and public.
I heard someone on one of the interviews I saw saying that he made her eat an entire cake publicly to humiliate her. Like, it was even more than a snap and smacking her. He said, eat it, and she got to like 11 pieces before she literally threw up.
I know there was a cake was involved in a public thing. Yeah, no, that sounds
even meaner, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that does kind of match with the theme that he felt he had to be in control of everything. So he hated this independence. The escape, we're not sure if that specific circumstances are true. It may be a conflation of several escape attempts, or at least escape fantasies. Yeah. It's hard to imagine Zelma refusing sanctuary to her daughter and grandsons, because obviously what's happened is Zelma has told Ike
They're on the run, go get
They're
them.
on the run, they're on a bus arriving at this time, and he's chased the bus down and got them. So she's been completely betrayed by Zelma, who, when she phones her, you can hear, and you don't hear Zelma's side of the conversation, but Tina's like, I'm your daughter, these are your grandchildren.
You're right, she had to be insistent.
And she's like, Mum, we bought you that house. So you really end up not liking Zelma at all.
Back to the movie. We see the Olympia Theatre, and it's London 1968. The billboard reads The Rolling Stones and Ike and Tina Turner. We see Tina on stage with the famous opening to the Creedence Clearwater Revival song, Proud Mary. Whatever's going on with Ike and Tina in their private lives, it's a great song and a great performance.
Every now and then, I think you might like to hear something from us. Nice, easy. Left a good job down in the city, working for the man every night and day. And I never lost 1 minute of sleep, and I was worried about the way that things might have been. You know that big wheel keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning.
As the song continues, we're told it's Chicago, 1971, and Tina's hair and costumes change, but the song goes on. We see Tina rouse a near unconscious Ike from the floor of his mixing studio, and then we see Los Angeles, 1974, and still Proud Mary rocks on. The song ends, but the chants of the crowds are Tina, Tina, and Ike manages to look distinctly unimpressed. The next thing we see is Tina recording Nutbush City Limits, with Ike interrupting her, shouting that she's not doing it the way he wants to. Now, there's lots of swearing, but we want to avoid having to have a explicit appendage on iTunes, so I bleeped him out. So if you watch the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, it is a brilliant character study. It's a great movie. Can't recommend it enough, but in the movie, be warned, do hear the actual swearing. Anyway, without further ado.
Goddamn, man, what the f*** you doing in there, huh? That ain't what you supposed to sing. Now, you know better than that. You know you got to sing this the way I told you to, right? Goddamn, man, how many motherfuckers I got to tell you? If you gonna sing this song, you got to sing this. You dig what I'm saying? I want to feel this song through my skin. You got to get up. I want you to get up from way in here. You put some stink on the. You better sing this like your life depends on it. You understand me?
All right. Come on, Ike. Come on.
So, whatever she does, however she sings it, it's not good enough for Ike. We learn that it was Tina who wrote that song, which maybe explains why he's so unhappy. The house is full of friends and hangers-on, but Ike tells them all to leave. As they go, Ike snorts something chemical, and Tina cheerfully says goodbye to all their friends, and predictably, as soon as they're gone, he starts to beat Tina. And then he starts to strangle her before raping her. For anyone who hasn't seen it, this is a very tough scene to watch.
So the reality on these bits, the Proud Mary song, their version of the Creedence Clearwater Revival song, was a great success. Again, more in Europe than the US, and that's similar to Nutbush City Limits. But we just got a clip. This is an interview with the real Tina Turner, talking about that Proud Mary adaptation that they did.
Proud Mary was good times. That was the song that I found that I wanted to do, like do things nice and easy, nice and rough. All of that was mine. I talked hours to get Ike to do that song, but Ike, of course, didn't want to do a song on stage that he wasn't in control of. So Proud Mary is happy times for me.
I love that clip. That's like that Proud Mary was happy times for her, and you can see that defiant spirit sort of starting to, which I think has always been there, but she starts to stop suppressing it maybe. She clearly was already leaning more towards rock music than the music she'd traditionally made with Ike. And she wrote Nutbush, which may explain Ike's hostility towards her and the song.
Yeah, are you, just bearing out the fact that she was a big hit in Europe and the US, are you of the generation can remember her at this time with Nutbush City Limits? Because I am.
Nutbush City Limits, I remember the first version of Proud Mary I heard was hers and Ike's. That was obviously them together.
I was a young teenager, and Nutbush City Limits was huge in Australia. It was number one forever, it seems. So she's always been very popular in Australia as well.
Yeah.
So back to the movie, we see Tina in a changing room preparing for a show when the girls notice something is wrong with her. They realise she's taken something that she shouldn't have, and next we see Tina in an ambulance on its way to hospital. Ike leaning over her saying, "You're going to make it, baby. If you don't make it, I'm going to kill you." Which is quite an insight into his mind.
And it didn't sound like a joke.
No, it didn't. It was very chilling.
Yeah.
Tina we see then in a hospital room staring at the wall when her sister arrives. It turns out though that it's not her sister as they'd announced, it's Jackie, her friend, who tried to stop Ike from hitting her in the cake incident. Jackie offers her a bed if she ever needs it. Predictably, Tina says, "I'll be alright."
Yeah, the truth is, yes, she did take an overdose of sleeping tablets, and she's now able to laugh at herself over the incident, but obviously it could have killed her.
She wanted it to, she took it in the dressing room as they show in the movie.
Yeah.
And it was Valium, overdose of Valium, and she wanted it to hit on stage so that she would collapse on stage, sending a message to Ike, but also meaning that they fulfilled the performance criteria,
Right.
and they won't get a cancellation fee or from the producers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a fascinating detail. And that's a pro at work.
I guess so.
But thankfully the girls noticed and the medics were able to stomach pump her, and maybe if she had gone on stage, it would have been too late. You don't know. I don't know how fast-acting Valium would be.
Pretty quick. Pretty quick, I think half an hour max.
Back in the movie, incredibly, we see Tina arrive back home with her bag where Ike and his buddies are cavorting with some girls, drinking, smoking, and Ike sort of says, "Yeah, next time you want some time off, give me some notice, hey?" Says, "Yeah, we're going on tour next week, but you need to sort the kids out first." And basically he's just sort of...
Doesn't care.
No.
Doesn't care that she's tried to commit suicide.
No, nothing at all. As if it's perfectly normal, as if she popped out to the shops and has been negligent in not looking after his children. The next thing we see is Jackie is visited at a house by Tina. They start bantering. Jackie's obviously dropped out of the group and is now living separately. But they start doing funny impressions of Ike, but then Jackie does an impression of Tina backing down to Ike, and it kind of hits a painful note. Seeing she's upset Tina, Jackie's quite heartbroken and she rushes across, and they comfort each other, don't they? So it's a very moving scene. And Tina says, "I just can't walk out." And Jackie doesn't understand her. And I've got to be honest, at this stage, I didn't understand her. You know, watching the movie, I'm thinking, get out of there, you're crazy. But then Jackie lights some candles and asks Tina to follow her lead in a chant. Tina's a bit confused, so Jackie explains that she's a Buddhist, and it's given her a focus and comfort. And eventually, Tina joins her in the chant.
It's chanting. I'm a Buddhist now. And when you chant, Anna, you can see things clearly. It's like life's mirror. And when you can see yourself clearly, you can change anything. Come on. You want to try it with me? Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myo Renge Kyo. Nam-myo Renge Kyo. Nam-myo.
So we hear the chanting continue, but the scene cuts to Tina in a changing room, preparing to go on stage, still chanting, and the backing singer's staring at her like she's gone a bit bonkers. Then we see her chanting in a room in the house, whilst Ike is listening to rock music and lying on a sofa and clearly annoyed by the chanting. So remember, he calls his buddy over and says, "Turn the music up."
But clearly the chanting and the whole Buddhism thing is taken off in Tina's mind, which is good. We see Ike and Tina flying somewhere, and he wants to use her as a pillow. She's annoyed and gets up and goes up some stairs, so clearly they're flying first class these days. When they arrive at the destination, Tina tries to hail a cab, but Ike bundles her into their waiting limousine and starts beating her again in the back of the car. He even takes off his shoe at one stage and starts hitting her with that. For the first time, we see her fight back. She slaps him at first, and he is quite horrified. He doesn't give up and eventually she ends up kicking him in the family jewels, and that stops him in his tracks.
Yeah, now we're going to play a very little clip, but it's very short, and it's just really to hear the steel in Tina Turner,
voice,
played by Angela Bassett's voice, because I certainly don't want to play the sounds of people getting hit, except Ike Turner, which is quite jolly, getting groan at the end. So anyway, here's the clip.
That's your best shot. You can't do no better than that. Come on. Come on.
So then we see the limo pull up at their hotel. They get out. They're both smeared with blood, got cuts and bruises. And then the whole lobby of the hotel, the staff included, they look on, I think a little bit in shock. In the hotel room, Ike stretches out on the sofa while Tina tries to clean up her fat, cut upper lip and the gashes on her cheek. Ike has fallen asleep, and almost on the spur of the moment, Tina walks out of the room. In the foyer, a staff member calls out, "Miss Turner?" And Tina runs. We realise that she's in Dallas, and she's run across a busy road in the dark, eventually coming to a Ramada Inn. At the reception desk, she asks for the manager.
I need to speak with your manager.
Yes, ma'am, right away. George.
I'm Tina Turner. My husband and I just had a fight. I'm supposed to open at the academy tonight. I have 36 cents on a mobile card. But if you would give me a room, I swear I will pay you back.
No, that won't be necessary. Now, Miss Turner, I'd be honored, really. We'll take care of you.
Thank you.
Right, so reality check on those bits. The Buddhism, she wasn't introduced by Jackie because Jackie's a fictional character, but it was the friends that Jackie represents that brought Tina to the religion. She's still an adherent to this day. She says it brings her calm and strength and comfort. Interestingly, Vanessa Bell Calloway, who plays Jackie in the movie, has deep Christian beliefs and was quite reluctant to do the Buddhist chanting. So Brian Gibson, the director, just said, "No, it's fine, just move your lips." And so it's actually someone else's voice, lip sync. So which is a nice way around it,
I guess. The Dallas flight really did happen, and it's quite famous amongst the followers of both Ike and Tina. She fought back savagely and has said that she'd never seen such a reaction from Ike. Yes, he kept hitting her, but his eyes looked wary, and she says it was one of the less savage beatings that she took from him. After Ike took some drugs, he sacked out on the sofa, so she did run out, not through the hotel foyer, but out through the kitchens, across the road, nearly being run over in the process, and into the nearby Ramada Hotel, where she did really tell the manager who she was and that she had only 36 cents and a gas station card, but would pay him back if he gave her a room. She says she's grateful to this day that manager did what he did, and she believes that he probably saved her life. Why did she choose this time to leave, and why had she stayed for over 16 years? Why was this the breaking point?
Right, and we've got to click. I mean, but the question I was asking myself at this stage was, why are you still there? Because you're not in any way, shape or form a stupid or a weak woman. I couldn't understand it, and this is the explanation she gave to Jonathan Ross in an interview.
And why was it at that stage? What was it that happened then? Why was it you decided now I can take no more? Had something specific happened, or was it just the build-up over the years?
It was just time to not take any more. It was constantly abusive, other things going on. There was no control. There was no freedom. It was just the sameness, and the violence. And you just get fed up and you say, life is not worth living if I'm going to stay in this situation. And I stayed there as long as I did because I was trying to help him from the beginning when he told me about his life and how hard it was for him to get a career going. And I promised him that I would never leave him. And I actually stayed because of that promise. But then it got to the point where it became really bad, really bad. So it's time to go.
I think for somebody who's not lived inside an abusive relationship, be you man or woman, you look at someone in her situation, you're like, well, that, you know, you're just being weak and scared, you've got to get away, you know. But listen to that and you think about his background and all these people that he got recording contracts and they just go off and leave him, and she'd made that promise. It's not weakness, it's strength. And I think she probably looks back and is quite comfortable that she gave it her best shot to live up to the promise she made. So it's nothing to do with Ike, it's to do with what she promised him and herself.
And says that she realised it's never going to change, right? He's not going to change, and this is going to go on forever. And that's great motivation, and it's good that it happened. But I seem to recall a conversation with a counsellor friend of mine who says that in abusive relationships like this, it's usually when the abuser goes one step too far and they nearly die. And that's when they realise that their life is at risk, and they get out. So for her to sort of have this epiphany, it's good, it's really good, but it might be a bit different to some others in those circumstances. But as you say,
no, definitely.
How can we really put ourselves in those situations?
Exactly. And I think that definitely there are some people who will continue, as she's shown doing in the movie, make excuses for them, blame themselves. What I find fascinating about the Tina Turner story is she's so clearly a motivated, ambitious, driven, powerful woman. You think about her stage shows, that it's energy, it's athleticism, it's not someone who's a shrinking violet.
No.
Now, I know that's physical and it's not necessarily character-based or emotional, but she is clearly an incredibly strong person to have been able to do what she's done. And it kind of makes sense now that it's actually, she was showing a strength in her adherence to that promise.
Being dependable and reliable,
Yeah. And I think in the clip, in the Ramada, it's a mobile card, I think she had, and 36 cents.
So it was a version of a credit card, but that she had nothing to her name, and that's exactly what they say.
Now, there's another great scene. I'm sorry to say we don't have any clips from it because I haven't found any that have got any usable audio. But it's a Los Angeles courtroom in 1977, and it's a divorce court. And Ike's gabbling away, and he's started doing this real fast sort of jive talking kind of thing that you'd see in 70s movies.
He's got the dark
sunglasses. I've got any easy access cash and everything. That's right. The judge says to him, "Remove your sunglasses. You can't tell me what to do." And he's like, well, "Yeah, I can. It's my court." And then it's incredible. Tina's counsel stands and says, "My client is willing to forego any money, property, song rights, anything else." And she says, "Except my name. I've worked too hard for that." Ike, who's been whinging about how he hasn't got enough money to give her any, protests even at that, says, "That name's got my daddy's blood on it." Basically, the judge shuts him down, pauses and says to the lawyer and Tina, "You understand, you're willing to give up everything and you're going to walk out of here with nothing except the name." And she said, "Yep, that's fine." And I think that's again where you see her strength and her confidence of, I'll start from scratch, but it'll all be me, it'll all be mine. I won't owe him anything, but I've earned that name.
So we've confirmed that she didn't have any money, the 32 cents and all that. Mm-hmm. That was correct. Did they get this bit right as well, though?
Yeah, the judge, that's all she asked for. She said, "No, I'll give him everything." She hadn't done. There was a petition for a 50-50 and royalties and all that. And by the time they got there, I've not heard her speak about this, except the bit about keeping the name. And I have wondered, we started referring to her as Anna May, and now we refer to her as Tina, and I wonder, she's really good friends with Oprah, but Oprah always refers to her as Tina.
Right.
So I wonder if her friends actually call her Tina now.
They don't suggest that she changed her name by deed poll in any state, but I guess she must have.
I don't know. Maybe it was Anna May was this little girl who came from a broken home and was abused by Ike Turner. Tina Turner, that's me, and I'm someone completely different now. I don't know. But yeah, the judge gave her the name.
I think she had less than nothing at this point in time. She was held responsible for the tour that they were on being cancelled, and she owed hundreds of thousands of dollars to promoters or something, I think.
Wow.
She was in real trouble, and it was immediately after this that she really struggled. But let's go back to the movie, shall we?
Yep, and we jump forward to the San Francisco Beaumont Hotel in 1980, and Tina's about to perform on stage, and she notices that Roger Davies, played by James Rain, a music producer, he listens to her sing Disco Inferno, which has got an amazing bass riff. She goes to have a drink with Roger afterwards, and she's saying, "I want to sing rock and roll like Mick Jagger and David Bowie and Rod Stewart. I don't want to do the old sad sax stuff I used to do with Ike." And next we see her laughing, leaving a recording studio with some musicians, bantering, and she goes to get in her car.
Then we see Ike. He approaches the car. He's making nice. He looks pretty clean cut. He's gotten himself together by the looks of things, and he's asking for just a minute of her time. He's brought her a gift, some flowers, and Tina grudgingly says thank you. She says she'll grant him just 2 minutes and sits down inside his car but won't let him close the door. The bottom line is that Ike's out of money and he's been writing songs.
Yeah, he says the record company want to send him to jail, doesn't he? And she points out, you got a lot of advance money, and if you haven't come up with the goods. Then he says he's been writing songs, and he says, I've written this amazing song for you. I can't remember what it's called. And basically asks her to come home. And this is her response and his response.
Look, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and...
2 minutes.
All right, now. Goddammit, I miss you, Ann. I'm tired of this. This done gone on long enough, and I want you to come home now. I know everything between us wasn't... Look, everybody got problems, Ann. I'm trying to take care of mine, and I gave up that narcotic. I'm just... Look, I'm telling you right here and right now, I'm gonna try and do right by you this time.
Bye, Ike.
Bye, wait a minute. I ain't through talking to you yet, now. You think about this. I made you. You wasn't nothing without me, and you ain't gonna be nothing without me.
You know, I was wondering when old Ike Turner was going to show up.
So let's do a quick reality check on that bit. We had her meeting her new producer, Roger Davis, and this in fact did turn her career around. Together, the two of them produced a number of songs, and through Roger Davis she was able to tour the States supporting Rod Stewart. We've got a clip now of Tina and Roger Davis on their first meeting.
And when I went into the office, Roger was one that I have a photograph of him now. He looked at me like I was some alien. He's staring at me like... And actually he said to me he was trying to think, well, he didn't know what they could do with me.
I knew that it would be difficult. It's difficult for black women singing rock and roll. There's very few.
And the scene where we see Ike trying to get in touch with Tina and try and get into her good books again, that is true, representing several times when Ike tried to get back in with Tina because he'd fallen onto hard times. She asserts that she was never hostile towards him, but always gave him a firm, if gentle, no to any talk of her coming back.
Back to the movie, and Roger Davis is on TV talking about their new music, and then we see Tina talking about her Buddhism, how it shows cause and effect, and if you want things to change, you have to change it yourself. And she's at her house now, watching herself on TV, when Junior turns up, now a grown young man. He's bleeding and says that Ike kicked him out of the house. And he warns Tina, he says, Mum, he's saying crazy stuff, he wants to hurt you. He doesn't know how, but he seems really worried.
We see Tina doing some chanting again, then crowds lining up to enter the Ritz, New York. Tina is in her changing room being wished luck by Roger Davies. He leaves and she's putting on the finishing touches to her makeup when there's a knock at the door, and it's Ike. He's rambling about she'll never get away from him, and then he pulls out a gun. Is that supposed to scare me? What you going to do? Because I don't care. I got a room full of people come to see me. So I don't know if you're going to shoot me, but... And then she gets up and leaves. Ike is deflated, and he tucks the pistol back into his trousers and leaves. We hear the announcer welcome Tina on stage. This song is What's Love Got to Do With It? So this is the 1984 Tina Turner with that big mane of light brown hair and her leather miniskirt and that power voice. Ike is melded into the crowd where he glares at the stage before leaving.
Brilliant scene. You can, I mean, again, this is the wonder of watching character actors like Laurence Fishburne and Angela Bassett at work.
Just a little gesture or a...
Yeah.
Not a word.
It's like something out of a Harry Potter where you can remove all the power from something by a word.
Yeah.
And she just says, you're going to pistol whip me? You're going to shoot me? Well, I'm going out on stage. You can do what you want.
Doesn't work.
There's nothing I can do about that. And he just, like you said, perfect word, he deflates visibly. The truth about it, though, the incident with Ike and a gun apparently did happen, but it wasn't in a change room just before a performance. But and I don't think Tina's ever said that he pointed a gun at her, but he kind of displayed the fact that he had a gun. I assume hoping that she'd be scared. I think she was way beyond that.
Yeah.
By then, it was just no.
After the course.
She had a huge success. What's Love Got to Do With It? And we were just talking off air, as it were, saying there's some wonderful interviews with her, and she says, "I didn't really like that song. She wouldn't have chosen it for the Private Dancer album."
1984.
Yeah, a year or two later, she played the Acid Queen in Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome.
No, Acid Queen Tommy, Roger Daltrey.
Sorry, she played Acid Goo, of course.
That was
Sorry,
10 years earlier, which they seem to have glossed over in the movie. Tommy.
Okay. No, let's leave that in. It doesn't hurt if people know I'm an idiot. That's right. They didn't mention that, did they? Yes, because she played the Acid Queen in Tommy.
And she herself, that was her own thing, getting out of Ike's shadow, and that was really significant to her, that she was a critical success in the Acid Queen in Tommy 10 years earlier. So they took a bit of a shortcut there, didn't they, leaving that one out? It wouldn't have fit the narrative, yeah.
But she did. She played some kind of the Thunderdome Queen, whatever it was, in Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. And she sang
Auntie Entity was the character's name. Yeah. Right. In Mad Max Thunderdome in 1985, so this is just after the success of What's Love Got to Do With It.
I only found this out through this research, but she was invited to play one of the roles in Colour Purple, which of course her good friend Oprah Winfrey was in, who's another, even though we don't think of her primarily as an actress, she's a brilliant actress.
That's where she started?
Yeah, Tina turned that down, saying, that's not a pun on a name, Tina turned that down. No, but she said it was a bit too close to childhood memories, and at the time she didn't quite feel strong enough. But then there's an interesting question. What did Tina think of this movie? What's Love Got to Do With It? And we just got a short clip here of her words to Larry King, legendary interviewer, about What's Love Got to Do With It, the film.
Did the picture do it justice?
Yes, I think in a way. I would have liked for them to have had more truth. But according to Disney, it's impossible. The people would not have believed the truth. And I understand that.
They would not have believed all you had to take.
That's right.
Wow, I mean, what a clip to say that, it was worse than a Hollywood movie. If we'd done it in reality, no one would have thought it was true.
Yeah.
Christ, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you have a very soft spot for her, and your research on this.
I just think there's something really appealing and attractive about her, and I'm not talking in a teenage,
fantasy.
Poster girl way. There's some, as a character, there's something about the way she always looks positive and cheerful whenever you see her on stage. She can look angry on stage when she's belting out one of these songs. And music, I really like some of it. A lot of it is sort of certainly in the 80s it wasn't really my genre. I was more sort of into the late stages of punk and rock, but at the same time I was listening to Gilbert and Sullivan comic opera and Tchaikovsky, so I've always had a fairly...
So you're eclectic, Martin. Who'd have thought?
I hate that word. But yeah, I was brought up on classical music with my parents, and then obviously through I'd say social media, not what do you call it then, Radio 1. Media. Through friends and interests, I got into all sorts of music, so I if I like it, I like it. But there's something about Tina Turner, and the like we were saying earlier, I think I do remember Nutbush City Limits, but I certainly remember her and Mick Jagger at Live Aid, and the energy, and I think at one stage he ripped her leather miniskirt off, but she never looked crude. And there's one interview I saw with her, and I haven't got the clip, but she said she made a really interesting point, which I think shows the intelligence of the lady, where she said she knows that some of her stage performances, it's a bit raunchy. It's not explicit. It's not sexual, but it's
suggestive at least.
Yeah, and she said it's full of energy. She said the strange thing is, male fans at times think that it's okay for them to make lewd and suggestive comments to her, and she said, I know they don't mean them nastily. They think they're meeting me in where I am.
She wants to hear these comments.
And she says, why is it that actresses can behave much worse than me playing a role the way I'm playing a role on stage, but no one goes up to them and thinks that they can relive that scene with the actress. Everyone accepts it's an act,
and it's over.
She said somehow with a singer they seem to think that, no, I'm just being myself. She said, no, I'm not. I'm not like that.
Well, just on your impression of her, and you'd like to think that she's this strong, powerful, positive person, one of the documentaries I watched in preparation for this, it spoke to a songwriter, a female, I forget who it was. I think she wrote You're Simply the Best for her, and other songs as well. And she says at the end of that documentary, she says that she's worked with them all. She's worked with all sorts of pop stars and divas and prima donnas, and she puts her hand on her heart and says that Tina Turner is the best. She's the most affable, the most down-to-earth, the most approachable, so she might be one of the good ones.
Yeah, there was one documentary I watched with Ike Turner who's being interviewed by, I think he's a black comedian who does a chat show, or did a chat show in the 80s or something. And he is Mr. Sycophantic. In fact, I think the clip on YouTube says Ike Turner interview fail, and it was failed. And he says he's so up Ike Turner's backside. He's lightly critical of beating your wife up, as you'd like to think you would be. But no, I turned it off after a while. I thought there's nothing for me here. But he said, "Oh yeah, I opened for Tina at Vegas, and she's not a very nice lady." And you hear the crowd go, and it's like, what? And he's clearly sucking up to Ike Turner. Why he would want to?
Wow.
I'd like to do something up to Ike Turner, but it doesn't start with S.
I know Arsenio Hall had a fall of grace. His show suddenly was taken off, or his career suddenly went backwards. Maybe that was part of the reason why. I don't know.
I've never heard of him, and never wish to again.
Well, we've got to wrap up the movie, haven't we?
Oh yeah.
We haven't quite finished all the discussion of the movie itself, have we?
No. We've reached the point where we see the end credits. A caption tells us Ike was arrested on drug-related charges and served, I think it was 19 months in a California state prison. Over some years, I think there were more than one sentence. Right. He was in and out and in and out. Then more captions tell us that What's Love Got to Do with It was a number one. And Private Dancer, Tina's first really successful solo album, won 4 Grammy Awards, including Record of the Year, which is like the best movie Oscar, isn't it?
That's right.
And the final scenes are of the real Tina Turner in concert, rocking the crowds. And it's really weird, because you suddenly realise we've been watching Angela Bassett.
And they molded the two,
and you realise she's done such a good job, you forget you're not looking at the real Tina Turner. So when you see the real Tina Turner, you think the moves are similar and everything, but they could be sisters, but they're not the same person. But just absolute credit to Angela Bassett for portrayal.
Yeah, great portrayal.
So the wrap up really.
For Tina, she had more chart success as a solo artist than she ever did with Ike.
Yeah.
But again, initially it was more in Europe than in the US. She wanted to get a record deal with Capitol Records, and apparently she was doing really good stuff in London. And David Bowie, who was with Capitol, he saw her live. They went and chatted. They became friends. She
didn't Capitol exec say to him, "Oh, can you come to our offices and meet us?"
That's
he said,
right.
"No, I can't. I'm sorry. I got tickets tonight. I'm seeing my favourite singer." They went, "Who's that?"
And so he brought them along. That's right. And then they had a chat 2 days later, and it all went really swimmingly. And then nothing happened from Capitol, and so Tina thought she'd missed out on a US contract deal. But about a week later, they got in touch, and she signed with Capitol. And the rest, as they say, is history. And this was the next 5 or 10 years are the most important years of her career, I think.
I love that
successful
quote I saw in one of the interviews, and she said, "No, look, I know I'm a known person in the States. I'm a star in the States. It's great." She said, "But I'm not as big as Madonna. In Europe, I'm as big as Madonna." And that's, I think, it's the Queen of Pop, the Queen of Rock.
Yeah.
And the titles they've both been given, I'm not quite sure by whom. But Tina Turner gave the UK a lot of credit in her solo success. But interestingly, she's never had a number one single in the UK, but she's had 2 number one albums, and 3 of them have reached number 2. So she is massive. She could go and sell out Wembley Stadium any day you like.
She's been officially retired for a while. I think 2000 she officially retired.
Oh, she's done tours since then, though.
Not tours. She's done some performances and little charity things and live this and that. But she's done voices for comics and cartoons and promotions and things.
Predictably, Ike Turner continued to complain about his portrayal both in this movie and in the press. He tried multiple comebacks as a musician, some success, but then he lost an awful lot of sympathy when he started attacking Tina for betraying her race, saying, she's turned her back on her people. There's no black people in her band anymore. And there is an Australian interview that it's quite fascinating, because the interviewer has got them both on video links, but it's not clear whether they are hearing each other live, because he says, well, this is how Ike told it earlier, Tina. So I think they've interviewed Ike, and then they've gone to her for her reactions to him.
She
I'm not
hasn't
sure,
heard, or he hasn't heard what
so
she said.
So I'm not sure that he gets a chance to come back. Her response, like, well, we held auditions in London for the band, and no black musicians applied. What do you want me to do? You know, and then she reminds viewers that she's mixed race, because her father was black, but her mother was American Indian, or possibly American Indian and African American. Incredible. She's now happily married to Erwin Bach, who's German, I believe.
Is he? Okay, but they live in Switzerland.
Yeah, they live in Switzerland, and she gave up her US citizenship in 2013. It's interesting that, because you pointed out that
the American taxman's got the longest arms in the world, and wherever you earn money, if you want to retain your American citizenship, you have to pay tax as if you're in America.
So what if you're paying income tax in the, say, an American's in Britain working, he's paying income tax in Britain, he still has to pay American tax as well?
I think so. That's why in the American college where I work, they give them an extra allowance to buy out the extra tax that they would have paid.
Wow.
I think they don't care. You've got to pay tax as if it was earned in America.
Quite likely that, she said the reason in interviews, that, and Larry King, in fact, in that interview, he asked her, why did you move to Europe? She said, well, that's where my fan base is. That's where this stage of my career was launched. It's where I met at the time, it was, I think, boyfriend. And there's a lovely interview with the two of them with Oprah. And he says, yes, I asked her, will she marry with me? He said, my English wasn't very good at the stage. And they all have a good laugh about it, but it's quite sweet. She's 78.
Wow.
And she has done performances in the last 5-10 years. She still has that energy. She says people might have to get used to it. I think she said she'd never say never. She has no plans to perform in the immediate future, but she said, if I do, people might have to accept that the movements have slowed down somewhat.
Good on her.
However, tragically, in July this year, only just over a month ago, the news broke that Craig Turner, Tina's 59-year-old eldest son that she'd had with Raymond, took his own life. He was a real estate. He never got into showbiz, never showed any interest. He was a real estate agent in California, quite successful. I've not tried to look into, it's too early, and it's really none of our business. Looking at this film, we just think it just seems really unfair that if we don't know if the childhood, that the marital violence that he witnessed had an effect on him, whether it was internal problems anyway, but and I just sort of look at her and think, has she not been through enough now? And apparently she's devastated. She was recording something, I think someone said to her. She was at some kind of event
when she left.
Well,
that's a sad note to end on, but
it is.
Shall we move on to our scores?
I think we should. But in fact, no. I do think it's worth saying though that the movie is a tough watch at times. It is brutal, but eventually it is a redemption story. She wasn't saved by anyone but herself. You could argue that the Jackie character and there were friends who supported. I'm sure she'd agree that, but like I say, why do you stay so long in that instance? And even if it's a psychological trick she plays with herself, she can look in the mirror and say, no, it wasn't weakness, it was strength because I made a promise.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on. So what about the scores then, Martin? What about entertainment? I wasn't expecting to like it. My pre-reading was saying that they seem to say that it strays from the truth too much, and I thought, oh, okay, they've really Disneyfied something or cut out something.
Wow.
But, wasn't I wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a real tough watch. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'd give it maybe even an 8, which I wasn't expecting at all.
For me, it's a solid 8.
Yeah,
solid 8.
And history? They dropped some characters. They put some new ones in.
They've toned down bits.
What's it like that we've reviewed before in that respect?
Hidden Figures, time, characters like the Kevin Costner character was
an amalgam, like Jackie was.
Yeah,
that's a good one, and we gave that a lot of marks for history, didn't we?
And obviously there's a lot of dialogue we will never know.
No, like all
only Tina and Ike will know that. I can't give it less than 7.
No, I can't give it less than 7 either. So let's go with
Let's
that.
go, yeah.
7.
8 for entertainment, 7 for history. If you haven't seen this film, it is timeless. It does not look dated.
No.
And even if you're not particularly into Tina Turner music, or you're not particularly into this kind of biopic, if you like seeing character portrayals done,
subtly, very subtly, as well as violently and in your face.
In the few months that they've shot this movie, the characters have aged 20 years, and they've got to develop and change and grow with them, and they're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, so in wrapping up...
Well, the next time we will be doing another tough movie. It's going to be Schindler's List. Out the same year as this, and the Best Picture winner at the Oscars, Steven Spielberg. Yeah, it's probably going to be quite a big episode, and it's going to be probably quite a tough episode.
And then after that, we've got another Spielberg. Post to Spielberg too, isn't it?
After that, we've got The Post, yes, Spielberg with... And it's the first time that Spielberg, Hanks and Meryl Streep have all been together on the same movie.
I'm looking forward to that one. I haven't watched it yet, have you?
No, I haven't. And I'm going to have to do quite a lot of research on that one.
I guess so.
Thank you very much, everybody. Now, what's love got to do with it? The movie played out with an incredibly poignant song of Tina Turner's, one of her solo career songs, and I can't see any reason to try and improve on that. So singing I Don't Want to Fight No More should be Dame, shouldn't she? Dame Tina Turner. We're conferring an HBH knighthood on you, madam.
First one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We must stop pretending.